the celebrant who celebrated his 89th birthday, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, said, "This is time to put stimulus expenditure in place, not time for austere measures." He called on government to employ more youths into the country's security. "We are under-policed and we are competing with armed robbers and bandits to recruit youths who are unemployed." He says, "Don't call them illiterates. Anybody who can handle a gun is capable of handling a tractor on the farm." He says that the minds of our youth on social media show that they are angry and we need to listen to them. Meanwhile, the senior special assistant to the president on media and information, Mr. Femi Adesina, says that the president is to travel to United Kingdom for what he described as routine medical checkup. The president's only trip outside Nigeria in 2020 was to Mali, where he was mediating into the crisis with other African brother leaders. This trip, President Muhammadu Buhari's first trip to United Kingdom for medical purposes was in February 2016. This trip today will be his 8th trip for medical attention. COVID-19. The presidential task force on COVID-19 did not meet yesterday. The mandate for the PTF was extended by President Muhammadu Buhari in March 2021 to March 2021. The task force was established to coordinate the activities related to COVID-19 in March 2020. Meanwhile, yesterday we had 48 new cases which were recorded in 8 states. Lagos had the highest, which was 13. Kaduna and Nasarawa both had 7 cases each. Total so far, 162,641. We registered only 1 death yesterday, and this has brought our death total to 2,049. Meanwhile, Kogi State is to receive doses of COVID-19 Oxford AstraZeneca today. The Commissioner for Health, Saka Haruna, who disclosed it, said that residents will be given unhindered access if they choose to receive the vaccine. The National Primary Healthcare Development Agency had actually attributed the delay in providing Kogi with vaccines to 2 factors. First was the concern over contradictory information about the vaccine. The second was that there was no repair of the cold chain facilities which were required to store. The Commissioner for Health, Haruna, says that there will be micro-planning with the Primary Healthcare Development Agency, and anybody willing to receive the vaccine will receive it. He said nobody will be exempted and nobody will be compelled. Governor Herbal, it will be recalled, has said he's not going to subject the people of Kogi State to the vaccination. He says he will not make his people guinea pigs. When the commissioner was asked if the governor will receive the vaccine, he said there's nothing special about the COVID-19 vaccine that we have to take the trouble of bringing the governor to come and receive it. Meanwhile, the National Association of Resident Doctors has indicated from April 1st, they will be going on strike. However, the Minister of State for Labor and Employment, Festus Keyamo, says the industrial action is deemed apprehended. By implication, he says they held a meeting last Thursday with the union, and when you hold a meeting, it means negotiation is on. And when negotiation is on, it is your duty to put the strike on hold. So we are appealing to them to hold their fire while we continue discussion on issues relating to the strike. Meanwhile, the Super Eagles of Nigeria are to take on the Crocodiles of Lesotho today at Teslim Balogun Stadium in Lagos. It is the last match of the Super Eagles for qualifying for African 2021 in Cameroon. The match, with the Super Eagles having 11 points, is described in football circles as a dead rubber fixture. The Super Eagles are playing their first match in 20 years in Lagos. They have always played at Uyo, Calabar, Port Harcourt, and this time they are now returning to Lagos after 20 years. About 10,000 fans will be privileged to watch the match at the Teslim Balogun Stadium. Guess what? 2 of the players, Leon Balogun and William Tross, said that, look, we are prepared to give our 100% to the match because we know Lagos fans are passionate about football.
Yes, and I'm just reading that one of the players has tested positive for COVID-19, Odi, I think.
Okay, there was this information about Wobi, and there was speculation that there was no confirmation about the positive test of
No, it's
Wobi,
here
but now
Yeah.
probably it has been confirmed.
He has left the camp
Okay.
for now. I wish him well.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. There is a story on the front page of the Nation newspaper, and indeed it's reported in other papers. It says, on the front page of the Nation, it says, gas crucial to economic growth, and LNG generates $114 billion. It's not the headline that is easy to know, it's the content of the story, because the event took place yesterday in Abuja at Transcorp Hilton Hotel. And it's the official launch of what is referred to as the Decade of Gas. If you are a scholar of energy resources, obviously at some point you get confused as to where we are or what we are seeking to do with our crude oil and gas resources. Less than 10 years ago, there was the launch of the gas master plan for this country. Desiani then was Minister of Petroleum.
Yes.
And we have also, Good Morning Nigeria, discussed the AKK, that is the Ajaokuta, Kaduna, Kano pipeline, which is to convey gas. So on what basis were you doing that? And then you also had recently the drive for gas-powered vehicles, CNG.
We discussed it here.
We also discussed it here, and Nigerians have also been sensitized on the need, for increased utilization of gas. So what was the purpose of those events, or those projects and programs? Were they not drawn out of a specific agenda? So why this launch again of the Decade of Gas? Sometimes, that's why I said, if you're a scholar of energy resources, sometimes you just get confused. So that this one becomes a new one. Now you say Decade of Gas from 2021, 21, 22, 20, until you count it. Then maybe another regime comes. They will say, no, it's no longer this one. I would imagine that at some point we should be able to catch our breath. Yes. Everybody recognizes this, if you are interested in the field, that Nigeria is more endowed with gas than with crude oil in the first instance. And there are ways of stemming the gas flaring in the country. Of course, new regimes have come on, the increase in the penalties, as well as increased utilization. In all of this, there is still the challenge of supply of gas to power plants. Yes. Thermal power plants were set up to utilize the gas. There are still issues. Yes. And we have brought guests on Good Morning Nigeria from Gencos and Discos, and sometimes you will be hearing, when they are discussing how much you are supposed to pay for electricity, they will be telling you about the price of gas. So I think those are more, I believe, those are more fundamental issues to drive than just looking for labels, Decade of Gas, master plan, and so on and so forth. So where exactly are we, and where are we headed? Are we starting another new decade?
I think the focus now is to divert attention towards gas. We are more endowed as a gas nation than a petrol nation. And our attention also is to diversify our economy away from dependence on petroleum. But most importantly, perhaps, I'm only speculating, perhaps it is to draw attention to investors that there are several opportunities in the area of gas that they are being invited to. The other story that was read earlier on was the clarification.
I'm sorry, just before we leave this subject.
Yes.
There was also an industrialization master plan that was drawn up.
Yes.
It was the minister then who was in charge of MITI that the master plan was drawn up. And gas was a critical element of that particular aspect. So it's not just drawing attention. The reason I'm saying this is that we know our national experience. We are usually very adept at designing plans and programs, but implementation then becomes a challenge.
Getting it off the ground, from the paper
again, is drawing attention to it so that people will now cash in with the opportunities that gas provides.
But President Buhari said NLLG has generated 43.3 trillion from gas so far.
And the trains for the LNG are increasing. So again, it's part of
LNG, but brass is in crisis.
Yes.
Okay, LNG is in crisis. I mean, if I say crisis, in other words, they haven't. Well, what's the polite way of saying it? That they haven't been realized, according to the plans that were supposed to have been put in place to also harness the gas resources. So, what is impeding those things? if after LNG has been on, and I think they're thinking about Train 7 now in LNG, you moved on to brass, and brass is fantastic. Okay, you can say that OK has a challenge because of the distance from the gas location and so on and so forth. But what else is our food? What else? We want to see it, and we want to also see the benefits. So I'm just talking about the label, decade for gas or gas.
I was talking about the story you read earlier on, where
we're running out of time.
Sheikh Gumi was giving clarification that he's not a spokesman for bandits, that each time he had gone to speak with the bandits, seeking that they lay down their arms and tread the path of peace, there have been government officials with him. He was speaking when Senator Shehu Sani visited him to plea with him to speak for the rescue of the 39 students of the Federal College of Forestry. He says he's actually talking with them, but the order of shoot on sight that was given has become a big obstacle to getting the bandits and some of these criminals to lay down their arms.
Well, I believe in other climes, the government appoints a negotiator to sort of negotiate things like that. But, well, time will tell how it goes. Well, thank you, Bayo.
Categorical. Not prepared to negotiate with bandits.
Yes, well, yes.
Because bandits will hold us to ransom.
They are already holding us to ransom. Okay, thank you so much, Bayo, for coming. We'll take a break now. When we return, our conversation begins.
For over 70 years, we've practiced healthy hygiene habits together. The world needs us to keep our fight going against germs. So let's wash our hands for 20 seconds regularly. Dettol. Protect what's worth fighting for.
You won't go shake your body. Instead, they make it calm down. It a form say sabi. You want to grow 6 packs in a day. I beg you not to pass your power. You want to show yourself, oh.
Whatever your size, find it with the new Airtel data plans. Dial *141# now to get the plan that suits you. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Mommy is ready to receive me a bundle of joy. Mommy is making my home cleaner and safer. We are Dettol, Dettol Sure.
Illnesses can happen at home too. That's why Dettol and me together will make my baby's home safe and to protect from up to 100 illness-causing germs. That's why moms want to be Dettol, Dettol Sure.
We are Dettol, Dettol Sure.
Nigerian youths are about the greatest asset the country has at the moment. It is therefore not surprising that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is strategically responding to the yearnings of the youth through multiple projects and programs. Youth Entrepreneurship Support Years by Bank of Industry, the Youth Investment Fund by the CBN, and several other conditional cash transfer programs. Recruitment of 774,000 social workers, majority of whom are youths, and so many other projects that are beneficial to youths directly or indirectly. If the administration can do all this, definitely with a degree of patience and time, it can achieve more. Nigerian youths must come together to say no to terrorism, no to vandalism, and no to all disruptive tendencies. Hashtag Youth for Greater Nigeria. Pacifying the youths, unifying the nation.
Can the Eagles triumph? This is the million-dollar question as the Super Eagles of Nigeria square up against the Crocodiles of Lesotho at the Teslim Balogun Stadium in Lagos on Tuesday, March 31, 2021 for a place at the African Cup of Nations AFCON Finals Cameroon 2021. NTA, Africa's largest TV network and pearl of sports broadcasting in Nigeria, and AIT, the biggest independent TV broadcasters in Nigeria, bring these matches live to Nigerians in a rare collabo with Hot Sports, Nigeria's premier sports marketing company. To take full advantage of the largest and biggest possible reach, contact NTA. You can't beat the reach. AIT. First with sports, Hot Sports, masters of the game.
And to begin our discussion on the first issue, let's take this background report by Oyeyemi Ajayi.
For years, Nigerian elections have been characterized by some irregularities, including fraud, ballot snatching, amongst others, with few or none brought to book. Over time, there have been calls for prosecution of electoral offenders, right from politicians to even officials of the electoral body. This is part of efforts to sanitize the electoral system and rid the country of embarrassing political activities. However, in recent times, series of electoral reforms have been initiated to improve the quality of elections in the country, with a view to put the country's electoral system back in its pride of place. These reforms have started paying off with the prosecution and sanctioning of some INEC staff who were found culpable for electoral malpractices. The anti-corruption crusade of the current administration in the electoral system was further heightened with the prosecution of Professor Peter Ogban, a professor of soil science at the University of Calabar, and a returning officer in the 2019 general elections in Akwa Ibom Northwest Senatorial District, to 3 years in custodial center for election fraud. Apart from the sentence, the court also imposed fine of 100,000 naira on the convict. Political analysts described the development as a landmark case, being the first time INEC is prosecuting professors for electoral fraud. They said this conviction will inject sanity into the election process, thereby improving the participation of Nigerians in the governance process, in addition to boosting the confidence of the international community in the nation's democracy. The question is, to what extent will this discourage Nigerians from engaging in electoral offenses? Are we likely to see more of such convictions in the near future? What strategies should be adopted in recruiting ad hoc staff for elections, especially as returning officers? Guest on NTA's Good Morning Nigeria will be answering these and other questions shortly.
Many thanks to you, Emi Ajayi, for that background. With us in the studios now to discuss this issue, let's welcome the Deputy Vice Chancellor of the University of Abuja. He's a Professor of Political Science. That's Professor Sadiq Abba. Glad to have you this morning.
Good morning.
Okay. Also here with us in the studios, a familiar face on Good Morning Nigeria, especially on election matters, is Chairman, Partners for Electoral Reforms, Ezenwa Nwagu. Ezenwa, delight to have you this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
I hope our viewers will still recognize you because your beards have grown and
I've left it to grow.
Silver.
He's reformed.
That's right.
Yes, he's reformed. And also joining us via Zoom is Honorable Cletus Obong, academic, former lawmaker and public affairs analyst. He's joining us from Ikom, Cross River State. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
All right, let's just begin the conversation with Honorable Cletus Obong, a former lawmaker who is with us via Zoom from Akwa Ibom. Akwa Ibom, of course, was the venue or the locus where the electoral fraud was said to have taken place as the manipulation of a result by the returning officer, the professor who has now been sentenced to 3 years in jail. Honorable Cletus Obon, tell us, what does this mean to the people of Akwa Ibom and indeed to other stakeholders in apprehending the fact that an attempt at manipulating the outcome of an election result has now resulted again in the conviction of a high-profile defendant?
Let me say that this is an announcement of a new era in our political jurisprudence and our political and electoral processes in Nigeria. First, it goes to confirm that the president is not paying lip service contrary to the social media mercenaries who have made the anti-corruption war look like a joke. Corruption is not just about infrastructure and government officials, but even private citizens who are given responsibilities. By this conviction, 3 things have been established. One, that President Buhari is very firm and committed to the anti-corruption war by appointing out of 11 states after the 2015 election. The only person who was reappointed and a resident electoral commissioner was Barrister Mike Igini. That shows that the president did his background check in reintroducing that man. The second point is that the president has reaffirmed his commitment, and finally, that the offenders can no longer walk away after doing what they did during elections and cause mayhem by trying to manipulate election results. And that it is a professor who is involved and no longer one of the street people that is being involved in this sentencing is a sound warning that never again going forward are we going to have electoral manipulators and malfeasance given a slap in the back of the hand. So for me and for the people of Akwa Ibom State, especially given that it is happening in the South-South, where it has always been alleged that election result writing has been the mantra and has been the practice, that is taking place in that particular local government. I don't want to join those who are trying to push it to say who caused it and who didn't cause it. The bottom line of what has transpired is that electoral malpractice and manipulation has finally been punished, even without the special court we have been advocating for. I do remember that Mike Igini, as a resident electoral commissioner in Cross River State in 2011, ensured that certain elections were repeated. I will recall the election in Obubra, one state constituency. That was the only election ACN, then as opposition, won. I was the state chairman, so I remember clearly. And that this is in 2011 also in Edo State, by 2015, in Edo State, if you remember, in the 11th state of Southeast and South-South, again, it was this Mike Igini that was the resident electoral commissioner for Edo State. We got that. So Nigerians must not only punish and lampoon public officers who misbehave, they should also give commendation when it desires to be given. This is one of such examples. And I do think that on this occasion, Nigerians should celebrate not just the president, but also the Professor Yakub INEC and people like Mike Igini. We should commend them on this occasion that for the first time in our electoral history, we are getting a man convicted for electoral manipulation and under the supervision of Professor Yakub, under the supervision of a President Buhari, and under the supervision of a resident electoral commission who had the courage and were fervently pursuing this matter since 2019 and finally secured this. That tenacity, that focus to get this result for INEC is a major watershed in our political history. And I think we should take this very seriously and as much as possible celebrate it and document it for future purposes.
Thank you so much. I'm still going to stay with you briefly. And you called it a new era in political jurisprudence, you know, and for for almost a decade now, there have been calls for electoral reforms, and, you know, to make the process easy and with a lot of credibility. The Don was sentenced to prison, custodial care for prison. And what about the people who coerced him to manipulate the result? What happens to them?
Precisely where we are, and this is the point I am making, that we must have more Mikey Guinness and more Professor Jacobs in the system, that we must have more President Buhari's after 2023, that will be committed to punishing people. I remember the First Lady recently in an interview on Journalist Hangout in one of those TV stations saying something to the effect that the lack of punishment system and also conversely, the lack of reward system has always brought us to where we are. Therefore, going forward, I do think, and I do not just think, that the electoral reforms as being proposed should give us first, a special court for trying electoral offenses, which has to deal with the expeditious trial of electoral offenders. Please, the electoral manipulators are worse than bandits, because manipulation of one result can set an entire country ablaze. We saw it in Kenya. In this country in 1993, we saw it happen. We've seen it in several states where election has become war without bullets. And this time we even have bullets and a lot of bloodshed. But Jonathan to say that this election is not worth the shedding of a Nigerian blood. This is where we are. That those who manipulate election and cause the kind of mayhem, as good as murderers and bandits and robbers and kidnappers, they are worse, because what stays with us after that is that they are infecting us with unqualified persons in positions. They are infecting us with bad and very ruthless manipulators and cheats sitting as leaders in certain positions, as senators, as federal house members, as presidents, and as governors. We've seen that happen by electoral malfeasance and misconduct by electoral officers who are manipulating elections as presiding officers, as returning officers, and even as security men aiding and abetting the thumb printing and hijacking of election materials, and sometimes thugs who destroy materials on the instructions and the information given by electoral officers. Therefore, one manipulation of election is worse than one act of banditry. We should therefore not look at election as election if we cannot punish those who infest and put this country into major crisis from beginning to end on a daily basis. So the electoral reform being proposed must be expeditiously, and this President Buhari must take this very seriously as part of his legacy. He is contesting no election. It is the fear of being affected by an election result that made even people like Jonathan not to sign into law his own proposals that were sent to the National Assembly. He couldn't bring them out. He signed out 14 laws in 2 hours in 2014. In 2 hours, over 14 amendments to the Constitution, including the 4th alteration to the Nigerian Constitution, which has become very consequential for us, that we do not allow electoral reforms on account of the fear of its effect on us. But this president, I'm very certain, will have the moral courage and the patriotic zeal, which he has demonstrated by allowing these processes. APC personages in the Senate as former governors, APC members have been sent to jail. I'm not hearing PDP talk partisan politics on this anymore. That APC governors, former governors, and even sitting members of the National Assembly are going to jail and on trial without unfettered. It never happened before. Before today, they will tell you it is a family affair.
All right, Honorable Odum, thank you very much there for Obum, rather. Thank you very much for your comments. We'll return to you in the course of the conversation. Let's come back now to our studios. Professor Sadiq Abba, the conviction of the professor of social science from the University of Calabar for his role in the manipulation of a constituency result in Akwa Ibom has been described as a class embarrassment, and something that is also significant in the sense that it sends out a clear warning signal to potential manipulators of electoral outcomes. What are your thoughts?
First and foremost, I think these convictions is long overdue. It was at least it should be celebrated in Nigeria because it's a new. It seems as it serves as a new beginning, as far as our elections and the results are concerned. And I'm also happy that at least today, Umar Yar'Adua's dream of giving Nigeria elections that are free, fair, and credible is now put in its proper place. Because I remember he was the first Nigerian leader to have at least owned up to the flaws that brought him to power and instituted a committee that is probably known as WISE Committee. And this committee came up with far-reaching decisions, if implemented, could have at least launched Nigeria into a democratic nation. But unfortunately, along the line, it wasn't properly implemented. But I think the convictions opens up two issues. The first issue is that Jega's thinking that the only way Nigerian elections could be midwife to produce free, fair, and credible results is by taking the elections final process to the academia. Jega's intentions were noble, but unfortunately, among the academia were worst Nigerians also. Despite that there are good academicians, there are equally bad academicians. And unfortunately, for whatever reasons, maybe the recruitment processes in coming up with the what do you call it, the returning officers are not foolproof enough to protect the process from having bad eggs as returning officers. That's the first issue. The second issue is I think we should equally at least commend and doff our hats to both INEC and the judiciary for their tenacity and resilience in pursuing this particular case to its logical conclusions. In the past, I have written of INEC, I have written of the judiciary, but at least I'm not celebrating the conviction of a colleague, but I'm celebrating the conviction of somebody who allowed himself to be used by certain politicians and to shortchange Nigerians who sacrifice everything to go to the polls and to elect their own leader. So I think head or tail is a win-win situation for us. And my prayers is this. We shall now, moving forward, at least we shall institutionalize this particular victory and make it a point of reference for our subsequent elections. Because I don't want to say that this professor is just a victim. I think personally surrendered himself to this particular political electoral criminals. But I believe now his conviction is going to be a warning to other professors who are going to be assigned as returning officers. And I hope and pray there are a lot of people like these professors that are still working free. I think we shall now put our searchlights on them and see how we can bring them to justice.
You know, a lot of stakeholders have, you know, when the Dawn started announcing the results, asked this question, why them? What are the INEC staffs doing that they cannot announce the results when the results are out? I remember in 2015, one of these professors couldn't even read what was written. He asked for light, you know, and he needed more light. At the end of the day, and I remember categorically him saying, I did not write it.
Yeah.
Mr. Ezenwa, let's have your comments.
Okay, so it's just a peep back into why we got there in the first instance. We were coming from an INEC that had obvious integrity deficits that led to President Yar'Adua, you know, coming up with those statements. And then the thinking then was that Jega didn't want to do the hard work of internal reforms. He decided to outsource. And that has become my challenge. Every intervention becomes a bureaucracy in Nigeria. Something that is supposed to be an intervention that is meant to just deal with a situation. We now make it look like that has become the norm. So in every election, we now look to people who were called in just temporarily to solve a problem. And then we now bureaucratized it in a way that the politicians themselves now know that you must always go to a certain place to source for your collation officers. And that opens up. And the reality is that we make the mistake of always thinking that election is an all-comers affair. Professor Sadiq has been involved in trainings. I have been involved in trainings. What you see most times is that we treat the academics with a lot of respect during the training. So most times the training becomes very ritualistic. You know, oh, he's a professor, so you don't need to put. So that challenge is what we're dealing with. There are people who have been trained in INEC, who are paid salaries to do this job, and they know how to do it. The big challenge was that they opened themselves up for compromise. So you needed to do a more bigger tinkering within to be able to set the platform that helps the people that you are bringing as ad hoc staff to do the work. And I know that through promotions, through a lot of other welfare things and training, that is going on in INEC. We must come to a point where we understand that interventions are what they are. They cannot become a bureaucracy. That's number one. Number two, Professor Peter Ogban is not the only one that is under trial now. You also have Ignatius Udux, he's in court from the same Uyo. But in 2019, the reality was that there were very disgraceful acts across the country that have not come to the point where we knew in particular cases where academics from certain universities were taken directly to government house. The INEC had to intervene directly and stop them from performing that duty and had to, over the night, you know, bring people from another university and save that situation. So this tragedy that has befallen us is that there is now no particular institution, no particular category of people that you can. The reason to go to the academics is that you have you thought that was the bulwark of intellectual honesty, values, integrity, and all that. That was so. There is no saving place anymore. So it's a call for us as a people to say, look, we can't lose everything. We must not come to a point where we no longer can even have confidence in any category of people to deal with. That's number one. The second question you asked, that's
number two.
Number two now. So the other important question you asked is, yes, what about those who, you know, induce them? The weakness of our law is that there is no evidence. You cannot show any clear evidence that these people were working for X, Y, Z. You can't prove it in court, even when we know that there are beneficiaries, that there are people. In this particular case of Professor Peter, he decreased and increased scores, vote scores for a certain political party. So there's a beneficiary. That beneficiary is working free because the law does not say anything about his and then
involvement.
But the bigger tragedy of our
there's procurement. Procurement. If you are procuring an offense.
Yes, yes, but that's what I'm saying. You for one, you need evidence where that happened, where that procurement took place, and all of that, and the rigor to get into all that because of the challenges that we have may not be able to help us. But the thing is to talk to. When we talk about electoral reforms, we must focus attention on those who have the responsibility to reform our laws. And the bigger challenge that we have is that the place we go to for reforms is actually the place where the beneficiaries of electoral manipulation and fraud are situated. So how you drag that conundrum is the bigger challenge that we have. That politicians, their political parties, and their candidates who profit from electoral malfeasance are the people we go to for reforms. So the conversation needs to be stronger in saying, look, in spite of you benefiting from this electoral perfidy, you must become statesmanly in the issue of lawmaking, in understanding that today you may be a beneficiary, but tomorrow you may be at the losing end. So that conversation is wider. But civil society, the media, we must celebrate, first and foremost, that there's a shift of the needle in terms of the fact that INEC, with all the excuses about paltry funds for prosecution, the lack of, the episodic victories that we see in our judiciary, that we are able to get this happening, and that we can get more if we focus attention. And then it also shows us that we may not necessarily again need to create another special court if there is the will internally to do the right thing and save ourselves, since we are talking about cost of governance and the rest of them, and save ourselves that new bureaucracy when, if we fund what is, we can get the same results.
Well, thank you very much. I am tempted to still stay with you because you have monitored and observed a number of elections during the usual election cycle and then off-season elections in the country. Let our viewers have an understanding of the kind of manipulation for which the professor has now been convicted and how critical that is to electoral outcomes. Because, yes, we talk about electoral violence, yes, we talk about underage voters, yes, we talk about all kinds of things, see and buy, but the actual fact of having to alter results, that's to say, after voters have been on the queue for several hours, in the rain or under the sun, and they have cast their ballot, somebody goes to a quiet corner, maybe an air-conditioned room, or with some ceiling fan cooling him off, and then begins to manipulate the results. How widespread has this been? Because each time we keep hearing about Form EC8A or something, that's what they call it. That's, very critical. If you recall, in one election, somebody went around police stations and they wanted to see the original Form EC8A. So how critical is this aspect in the value chain of electoral fraud that has often cast some doubts as to the credibility of electoral outcomes in parts of the country?
So we have the benefit of looking at the reports of the panels that INEC itself set up. You would be amazed and embarrassed first by what some unscrupulous INEC staff themselves do. In fact, there are administrative issues going on to deal with those who, they start even from manipulation of, first is the distribution. You are supposed to collect PVCs and not distribute. Some, first and foremost, are involved in distribution of PVCs. They collect people's PVCs, hold them, and then trade with them. That's where it starts. And there is already reports on that. That's one. For the particular cases of this professor, there is the work of a collation officer, and if you remember, we are always saying that collation is the weakest link in the chain. So what he did was simply adding 5,000 to a particular political party and decreasing the vote of the other party by that 5,000, and falsely altering, deliberately doing so. And the shameful part of it was that, in spite of the fact that he was invited to a panel, he refused to come for the panel. The vice chancellor of the university was written to him, asked him to come. He still didn't come. He was the one who actually brought a lawyer to INEC to deal with this issue. The second embarrassing one, the second professor, although the matter is still in court. Yes, but the bigger issue is that somebody you could say the result that the result from the polling units, the collation that you did was manipulated. You swear to an affidavit and then later come out to denounce your own affidavit in your own handwriting. So you have different kind of things going on at that level. You have deliberately ignoring overvoting. Because the law says in cases of overvoting, you must cancel. If there is violence, you need to cancel. In many cases, even when they know those things, they overlook them. So you have a case of electoral fraud and dereliction of duty. And so the dereliction of duty is knowing what to do and refusing to do it to give advantage to a particular person. So how widespread it is, the reality of our situation is that the legitimacy of those who eventually go for Thanksgiving during elections do not always correspond. And that is why you have a litigious electoral environment. We are always in court. At the end of every electoral cycle, you have more people in court than those who eventually, and many of those cases, the reason for that is because people know, both the winner and the loser know that their hands are involved, and sometimes it's the one who outrisks the other, not necessarily because the other person is a saint. So you have a community of people who truly do not even believe in honest electoral effort. They want to pervert the process to get an advantage. And in collusion with internal unscrupulous elements within the electoral body itself. So as we celebrate this tokenistic, judicial intervention that we have seen, we must also make a demand on INEC to publicly put out those who collaborated internally and what has happened to them, so that they are not shrouded in administrative runs in a way that at the end of the day, because from Akwa Ibom State, where this happened, there are collaborators, and the reports are very clear that those collaborators because this came to the headquarters because the collation officers are senior people and will be dealt with by the headquarters. But the small people will also need to know what has happened to them, so that at the end of the day, these politicians don't also use their influence to close those matters.
I was just wondering, Jumai, in law, there's a principle of avoidance of double jeopardy. Professor Sadiq Abba, I'm wondering, Professor Peter, Professor of Soil Science, University of Calabar, has been convicted of electoral fraud. Fraud is fraud. It doesn't have to be financial. In a sense, some persons would argue that makes untenable even his position in the university after his sentence is done.
Yeah. In the academia or the ivory towers, there are two issues. One, you must be found academically competent in terms of your research and publications, and in terms of your capacity to deliver knowledge, wisdom, and logic to your students. That's the first angle to it. The other angle is about your character. A professor is supposed to be an embodiment of both knowledge and character, because if you don't have it, you won't be able to impart it to the students. Ideally, by this particular incident or accident, he's supposed to lose his own position at the university. I'm not advocating for that, but that is the ideal situation. If it do happen, then I think there's nothing new, because that's the expectations. But if by any chance he escaped from being sent away by the university, this Nigeria, I won't be surprised. But the reality is this.
So why should that happen? I was saying this is Nigeria. I mean, if you're talking about an ideal situation,
yes.
And an ivory tower that is should be representative of character and learning.
And in other climes, he should resign
on his own
voluntarily.
That's what I said. This is Nigeria, yes. Because ideally, if he has character in him, on his own, he will just put his paper down. That's number one. And number two, like as I said, see, there are other beneficiaries from this particular malfeasance. What happens to them? Nothing. And let me give an example. In 2011, I'm very sorry if I bring this history back. In a state in Nigeria, a professor was the returning officer, and the ruling party in that state was losing the elections seriously. And the governor and at the federal, they all came to him that, look, we are going to give you from 1 billion to 3 billion. They kept on negotiating. That just write the result for us. We'll take it. The rest will be history. But this guy stood his ground. He refused. And up till now, INEC did not commend him. And it was a public knowledge now. He was not given any national honors. The university did not call him and say, thank you very much. You saved the image of this university. Nobody. He's just languishing here at Giri. Nobody. So, you see, I think, in as much as our, our ability to punish offenders is very, very poor, equally also our ability to reward good people is completely zero. So this is the crossroad at which we are operating in Nigeria. We don't punish criminals and we don't reward good citizens. So in between these two lines lies a lot of possibilities.
Well, I don't think this reward thing, somebody is brought in to do a job. Because there's also the fetishization of reward. As in, if you do something that you are supposed to do, then you must be rewarded. The university has a reputational challenge. There's a stigma on the university, because anytime you say Professor Peter Ogban, you say Professor of Soil Science, University of something, right? So that university has responsibility to show the world that it does not tolerate. It doesn't need, this is, because when Prof is saying this is Nigeria, we must come to that point where the bigger challenge for us is that institutionally we don't have shame. Individually we don't have shame. We don't have any sense of shame. So a man who has been convicted for electoral fraud and dereliction of duty will come back from prison and return to university to teach who? What will he be telling those students? No, the students he will be impacted, whether at master's, PhD, or undergraduate level. What will that professor be telling the students?
All right, President, thanks. I just wanted Cletus Moon to respond to this very quickly. Now, we have often complained about the slow pace of the prosecution of election offenders and sometimes the failure of such prosecution. But in this particular instance, the judge that tried the matter and then convicted and sentenced the offender decided, of course, on the basis of precedent, to disregard the absence of a police investigation report. In the past, that was always a sore point, that there's no police investigation report before INEC could proceed with the prosecution of alleged offenders. Is this also a turning point, that's something that should be encouraged and publicized as widely as possible so that doesn't become a hindrance?
Yes, let me first take the issue Prof raised about reward and punishment, and my friend and brother Ezewa's response about taking your responsibility. We are not in America. We are not in the United Kingdom. That does not mean we are less. We cannot grow beyond our cultural norms in spite of the so-called globalization. In a system in which corruption, evil, manipulation, and all kinds of shameless and shameful acts are perpetrated, where there are such exceptions, they should be rewarded or punished accordingly. I do not agree that somebody is doing the job he's paid to do, therefore he should not be rewarded. There is no such thing. In any case, there is no system that does not reward hard work. That is why there are awards in organizations, even private companies, even in the best civil servant of the year, best head teacher of the year. Were they not doing their duties? So the reward system must be there, and the punishment system as well. Coming to your question about timing, and then the other issue raised about internal cleansing. I have followed elections sufficiently and participated as an actor, both as a contestant and as a supervisor for a political party. I've been very diligent, and I have made this point always. If you check our electoral cases in Cross River State, I know no living or dead Cross Riverian that has been in court challenging electoral processes than me as state chairman of ACN and today in APC. I have always, even when I know that we may not be winning, but to prove my case and put myself on record, we've had to, even local government elections that states manipulate and write names, I have always challenged them, even in the courts and judges that they set up. Now today, what we are having and the delay that you are referring to is always deliberate. It is within the discretionary powers of a judge to see the utilitarian value of the police investigation report in a case where there's a prima facie case like the one Ezenwa cited, in which somebody took an affidavit in his own writing and turns around 360 degrees to deny his own writing and what was said on record. I'm not an ordinary Nigerian, a professor. I will recall that during the elections of 2019, don't forget that this election that we are talking about, this conviction was as a result of 2019 election. This 2021, 2 years after. Very few Nigerians will have the patience to continue the prosecution, the diligent prosecution of this matter up to this point. Very few public officers will also have that patience to do this and to go through the rigors of the delays that our court processes entail. Therefore, in order for us not to have this, if we have a time limit within an electoral act for which to prosecute a pre-election and a post-election matter in the tribunals and in the regular courts, as enshrined in the alterations and the amendments of the Electoral Act and the Constitution, why should the trial of those who manipulate those elections not have a time limit in order for us to see the quick results that those who are to go scot-free or to be rewarded should be done within the election cycle? So it doesn't become
Okay, Honorable Cletus Obun, academic, farmer, lawyer, maker, and public affairs analyst, joining us via Zoom from Ecom Cross River State. Thank you so much for your input. We're really running out of time. We have another topic to discuss. Thank you so much for coming on Good Morning Nigeria. Ezwan Wago, Chairman Partner for Electoral Reforms. As always, it's a pleasure to have your input on any discussion. Thank you for coming. And Professor Sadiq Abba, Deputy Vice Chancellor Administration, University of Abuja. Thank you so much for coming. As always, it's a pleasure having you. We'll take a break now. When we return, our second conversation will commence.
Mommy is ready to receive me a bundle of joy. Mommy is making my home cleaner and safer. We are Dettol, Dettol Sure.
Illnesses can happen at home too. That's why Dettol and me together will make my baby's home safe and to protect from up to 100 illness-causing germs. That's why moms want to be Dettol, Dettol Sure.
We are Dettol, Dettol Sure.
One passenger. Big auntie. Come and enter my bus now.
Hey, conductor, this cough is serious. I beg, you need to go to the hospital.
Hospital? Auntie, if I go hospital now with this cough, those people will just say I have COVID-19.
No, they won't. Doctors say cough symptoms are different in every condition. Some are dry, others are wet, like your own.
God bless you, auntie. I have told this my conductor. The cough has refused to go, and it could be tuberculosis.
Conductor, check am o. Make you dey sure, because who no go, no go, no.
Check that cough for tuberculosis.
Check am o, make you dey sure. If your cough is more than 2 weeks, it could be tuberculosis. TB test and TB treatment are free. Just call the National TB Hotline on 3340 for information on where to get the test. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Health with support from the American people.
Hello, I bring you wonderful news. The village headmaster is coming back to your screen. Mo wire abi mi o wire.
Teacher no more. A fellow one country. Teacher no more. A fellow one country. Omoni resiti me.
Ajebo na better school for last gidi. Not be all this on a rugged yes school for Ijabi. I don't know for you.
Second, it's called Oja Village. Kadesi. We know happy at all.
And I know that even you too, you are getting a lot of orders too. Hey, we are trying, shao. Sweep her leg out. She was standing there. Sweep it.
I love you so much.
And how did I give you the impression that I was interested in that position?
50-year anniversary.
You mean anniversary?
I talk with that now.
That not for me.
You want make I die?
Not for me because of Pamio.
Teacher don't want a fellow one.
on fire. No be peace, talk conquest. You know, any food I know,
Although social media as a channel of communication is inherently harmless, it becomes harmful and damaging when used without discretion and thoughtfulness. Bad social media users spread rumors and fake news without verification. But good social media users stop, reflect, and verify information before sharing it. Be a good social media user. Stop the spread of fake news. Verify the authenticity of your source and use social media responsibly for a better Nigeria. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, in collaboration with the National Orientation Agency.
Can the Eagles triumph? This is the million-dollar question as the Super Eagles of Nigeria square up against the Crocodiles of Lesotho at the Teslim Balogun Stadium in Lagos on Tuesday, March 31, 2021 for a place at the African Cup of Nations AFCON Finals Cameroon 2021. NTA, Africa's largest TV network and pearl of sports broadcasting in Nigeria, and AIT, the biggest independent TV broadcasters in Nigeria, bring these matches live to Nigerians in a rare collabo with Hot Sports, Nigeria's premier sports marketing company. To take full advantage of the largest and biggest possible reach, contact NTA. You can't beat the reach. AIT. First with sports, Hot Sports, masters of the game.
Welcome back. The emergence of COVID-19 has brought to the fore the need for Nigeria to develop her medicinal plants and other herbal therapies for common ailments.
Well, a pharmacist, director and head of complementary and alternative medicine at the Federal Ministry of Health, Zainab Sharif, who's of course a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria, has been a champion of this cause for years and has now decided to document the knowledge for the benefit of all.
And to this end, the pharmacist authored 3 books, namely Common Medicinal Plants in Nigeria, Healing Recipes and Herbal Therapy for Common Ailments, as well as Medicinal Plant First Aid Kit, the Kitchen Spice Rack.
Well, the 3 books are to be launched today, and the author is right here with us in the studios to discuss the books. Hajia, pharmacist, director Zainab Sharif, as I said, head of traditional and complementary alternative medicine at the Federal Ministry of Health. Pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria again.
Good morning, viewers, and good morning. You know, I'm always relaxed when I come, especially when I see Kingsley and a good combination, Kingsley and you are all herbalized. And
yes, we are. Yes. Okay, let's begin. You wrote an introductory to what we're seeing today 20 years ago.
Sure.
And now you're launching 3 books. A lot of Nigerians have followed you and used your recommendations when it comes to herbal remedies. What prompted you to think of sitting down to pen it all into a book and for people to read? You know, it's history, actually. Yeah. It's going to be history. It's going to be part for centuries to come, I believe.
Let me first by thanking Almighty God, because we must all know that God is the omniscience, the omnipotent. When God has anointed you to do something in life, and you are lucky to identify that something and follow suit, I think it will be good. And I always have these things behind, this saying behind me that heroes do not pass through the normal routes. They go through unusual route. Because when you go unusually, you get a lot of discoveries. And then when the discoveries is done, you become the hero. Prompted by my background as a pharmacist, I'm prompted by the inheritance which I got. I'm prompted by, there is a lot there. God said, I have some lot of 41 medicinal plants were mentioned in the Bible. Yeah. Nor are you taught to talk about the Quran. The Prophet ﷺ said, use black cumin. It's a remedy for all diseases except death. Black cumin, Nigeria sativa, is a prominent black seed. And then let's come to Ezekiel 47 verses 12. The fruit is for man's food. The leaves is for his healing. I should allow, in Genesis, I allow the trees to grow and the herbs in the field. Great writer Paracelsus in 16th century said, your meadows and your pastures shall be your pharmacy. What I have given around you and what you go out in the world shall be your medicine. Let me further said, a great Chirurg practitioner of India had a student, and the student, after 3 years or 4 years, said, Master, I want to graduate. He said, okay, for you to qualify for your graduation, go out there and get me the healing plants. The student went day 1, came back in the evening with so many plants. Day 2 and day 3. He said, Master, there is so much out there I cannot end. I knew as a scientist, I believe I'm a bridge between the practitioners who have the traditional science and me who have the modern science. There is a kind of space that I need to fill to be able to dilute the language. The extreme researcher, scientist, researches and puts it in the shelf. The traditional medicine practitioner believes in his practice as done by inheritance. The 80% of the rural populace have no problem with him because they go to patronize him. The elites like me and you believe that that man doesn't know what he's doing. I cannot believe in him. I took the traditional science from him, kept it aside, bring my knowledge of pharmacy, put it together, bring my knowledge of research, put it together, field research. Go to the documents. I read over 200 books over the years, different books written by different authors in this area. It is not new. Maybe Nigerian sea is new, but there is a lot there. I read a book written in 1973, said, if people knew the value of eye bright, the spectacle man will not sell. Maybe Kingsley won't be using glasses, or you.
My glasses are not on now.
Yes, eye bright. I wondered what is eye bright. That is a story for another day because I was able to identify the eye bright with the power of intuition. So what am I saying? I felt that let me bring this knowledge to the middle gap. And for me to do that, I have to dilute the science for your own understanding. And also the practitioner science. You see, a practitioner says, Gbogbo Nishe, it cures all. His sense is that that product he's talking Gbogbo Nishe, my science explanation is that it is an immune booster because it has the ability to boost the immune system. Hence the word Gbogbo Nishe, the science immune booster. The knowledge research, we say that how is the immune boosting done? Through many scientific detailed processes, which is not the show for the day. So you can see that knowledge. Went to India, got their traditional experience. Went to China, got their, even Japanese. I was struck by Japanese after reading all the hospital pharmacy where I had robots. Robots were there. They still took me to traditional medicine to learn Kampo medicine.
What's Kampo medicine?
Kampo medicine is Oriental medicine practiced by Japanese. That is why longevity in Japan.
Yes.
I took a study. I said, why is there longevity in Japan? I met a professor. I asked him. He said, you see this tree? This is the one we always eat. That is Jingo biloba.
Yes.
It's a tree that they eat the fruits. We have so many fruits in the wild. We have what we call the doum fruit, D-O-U-M, Goriba in Hausa. Excellent food. It's like the head, the skull. It is good for the brain. This is in cases doctrine or signature of literature, where we say like cures like, or like plant is similar to the like organ, just like I say eye bright. So you can see all this combination. I said, Kai, I needed to put this. 2001, I had my first publications, which were these 3 publications, which was launched. Not much acceptability, but I was impressed by Clayton University in England that recommended this book. Then this book were sold in UK, 13 pounds, 7 pounds. Of course, royalty is a story for another day. But that was not my interest, is that people could get the information. Along the line, I have collected so much knowledge, I've collected so much information. The power of knowledge, the power, you must put it down. Let me pause and appreciate my late husband, Alhaji Uduju Sharif, who always say, put this in writing. This is what I have done in his memory. These 3 books.
Okay, all right. Pharmacist Zainab, thank you very much. What I would like you to do in the meantime is to let our viewers know what each of the books deals with, each of the 3 new books that are due for launch today, and then we can return to some of the more substantive issues that relate to herbal medicine or alternative cure. So the first book, what is it about? And,
okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Let me start by looking at these healing recipes. Herbal therapy for common ailments. You can see it's a revised edition.
Yes.
This book contains all my TV programs that I have done over the years. You see me making mixtures for care of the heart, for care of the kidney, emphasizing on preventive health care. A good pictorial representation of the organs of the body, which you need to understand. You must look at preventive measures, not just curative. The human kidney, every day we celebrate Kidney Day. But have you cared for the kidney? This book enumerates simple basic steps using some basic food items, some herbal remedies in the management and preventive measure. All the programs, so I am glad indirectly this is an NTA book because of the support I get from NTA, then making my presentations, writing my recipes, and this dove down into common herbal therapy. You can see the pictorial representation. I took the pains to make it easy for the reader with pictorial representation. A topic, even the care of the female and male reproductive system. You may wonder, do you have care for male and female reproductive system? In this book, it will tell you clinicals, simple remedies that you can use, because God has given for every part of the body, there is a plant that he has given. But man must seek to know. So this is a clear explanation. This is a book that even the researchers can use as a guide, and you can see that even men and women, simple remedies, because we must begin to emphasize preventive health care. This is what healing recipes we see much to say.
What about the common medicinal plants in
Nigeria? I am glad. I am telling the story of Nigeria. The over almost 150 books I read in medicinal plants database, they will tell you that this plant is indigenous to China, indigenous to India, indigenous to UK. Very few is mentioned about Africa. We must tell our story. This is what I have done. Common medicinal plants that are available. Look at the pictorial representation of the cover book. This is a baobab. I love the baobab tree because even the European Union has classified baobab as a superfood. This is why I told you that 100 milligrams of the baobab powder gives you 300 milligrams of the baobab powder gives you 100 milligrams of vitamin C. Even locust bean, dawa is there. There is a plant called hospital is too far. Hospital is too far. It's a common vegetable eaten in a lot of the locality. Hospital is too far means first aid. Boost the immune system before you go. It's a way for us to know what we have to stimulate what I call cultivation. Cultivation, preservation. And then when you begin to cultivate these medicinal plants, you develop a value chain. A value chain for processing, a value chain for marketing, to produce phytomedicine, to produce body care products, and further stimulate research for the discovery of medicine in Africa and in Nigeria. If we take some of these plants, bitter leaf, an example, is a plant that is more abundantly grown in Nigeria, and except for some Caribbean countries. So we have abundance of bitter leaf, now known in US and promoted as the super magic plant, which is available. If we research, NIPRID is doing a lot. Let us support these research institutes. We can now have our own drug. Hey, man, we must begin to discover our own. God is not happy because what he gives to you, you say in Sokoto, is here in your Sokoto. It is time we promote our own. This is the common medicinal plants. I am telling the story of Nigerian plants.
Yes.
Medicinal plant first aid kit. The kitchen spice rack. Every mother knows what I mean. In your kitchen spice rack, you have beautiful, wonderful spices. You add to your food to taste. The history of spices started in promoting intertrade, international trade between countries, Mediterranean coming to Africa, carrying their spices in ship to come and promote. Those spices were not only seen for the benefit of foods, they were seen as medicine. I am saying, mother, that your kitchen spice rack, which you have, is not just to add taste to your food. It is also to be used as first aid remedy. Remedy, I promoted the mortar. That mortar, you see, is a great processor. As a pharmacist, my logo is a mortar. That means, Kingsley, I have cough. Get me some slices of ginger, get me some lemon, let me crush them, let me add boiling water, let me sieve it, and let me add lemon and honey as a first aid remedy for cough or cold. I have over 50 spices mentioned here. Those that are, there's a spice I like called, it is called the African black pepper. This African black pepper is abundantly available. There is also called the West African black pepper. The West African black pepper is the common uziza, which is abundantly available in Southeast. Much more medicinal. For a pregnant woman who has just delivered, you need to detoxify and remove all those clots. Those soups that the grannies prepare, making those spices together is to remove all the debris. These are things that are mentioned in the kitchen spice rack.
So how much recharge does somebody need to do to be able to gain so much knowledge on?
We have, what we did is that there is, you can access and pay online, or at the launching for today, for the launching of each copies, you can see the quality of the books. For each copy, it is 20,000. You buy the 3, it is 50,000. A lot of knowledge has been there. In between these 20 years, I lost 2 people. So the research was on. And I've done, and I appreciate, I'm glad. I must commend the NTA for being with me in these troubled years. Particularly, permit me to commend both the executive director of news, and more importantly, executive director of programs, who was always encouraging me to do this preparation. That is Mr. Wole Koka, and of course, the executive director of news, and all of you who have encouraged me, giving me that spice. I thank my Ministry of Health supported the publication of these books, which are currently going to be displayed. These are ways to, at the end of the day, I want to see Nigerian promoting green gold. We talk about black gold, but this is green gold. The plants are there. For those of us who understand the language of the plants, they come, they look at you and go. You don't need me. It is time for us, maybe when you read my books, I will see, I don't have problem with the community. They grow these plants. But we are talking of diversification. We are talking about job creation. If women, youths, have 100 acres of land, cultivate 1 acre of bitter leaf. Let us develop the value chain for bitter leaf. You process it, storage condition, good agricultural practices, good storage. Let's further process it. We capsulate, which we call phytomedicine. You can capsulate bitter leaf as a holistic powder with a specified quantity. And you can also extract to produce tincture. You can also extract to produce soap for rashes, okay? And also for skin beauty for the face. Turmeric is an example, and like I told you of interest, even potash is mentioned. You know, potash is a supportive of herbal medicine. We often call it the non-plant constituent that adds value to the properties of medicines. So I think it's the time for us to educate those groups in between to know the value. Quantity is specified because people will say, that's why I was very careful. A lot of specification, quantifying the quantity and even quantifying the liquid and telling you the process. A topic that should interest everybody is the first topic I have in the healing recipes, detoxification. In Orthodox medicine, you don't talk about detoxification because we believe that the liver, the kidneys, should work hard to detoxify. But in natural medicine, in herbal medicine, we look at how do you support the kidney to detoxify? What is the kidney food? What are the hepatic herbs? The organs of detoxification are clearly mentioned. The liver, the kidney, the GIT, the lungs, and the skin. Do you know the skin removes? In that formulation, I have about 13 different recipes for detoxification. At least for the poorest of the poor, there is a formula that you can use.
Can you just name one? These are 13. Give us, give
for
one,
example,
one as a freebie.
Yeah, let me give people freely. And I like giving the ones that they are popular. One of my formulation for detoxification, which is more encompassing, that formula will detoxify the liver and the kidney. 5 leaves of bitter leaf, or 1 powdered teaspoonful of bitter leaf powder. 5 leaves, 1 powdered teaspoonful of bitter leaf in a teacup, 250 ml. Put the teacup, put the bitter leaf, boiling water, not only the bitter leaf. I'm going to give you, add 2 medium-sized carrots. So let's say the easy one, the 5 leaves, the 2 medium-sized carrot, okay?
Chopped or?
Yeah, you are going to wash them cleanly. The kitchen will do the work. The 2 medium-sized carrot, finely chopped. The 5 leaves, washed and chopped. Lemon into 4 size, or lime into 6 parts. Remove 1 part of either the lime or the lemon, put it aside. A piece of ginger, slight piece of ginger, put them together. A glass of water. Wash, blend with that glass of water. Then you sieve. That juice that comes out is called life juice. Freshly prepared. In pharmacy, we call it extemporaneous preparation. Fresh and fresh. You take that 1 glass, even 1 daily for 3 days, you need to flush. Do you realize the toxin we all are going about with? No synthetic drug can cure those toxins. Only foods and fresh juices, I've said.
You know, Pharmacist Zainab, there's something I would like you to clarify, because I keep hearing this, not just from you, but from a number of other sources. What is the significant difference between lemon and lime? I hear a great deal of emphasis being placed on lemon to such an extent that I even begin to feel sorry for lime.
Yeah.
You know, and so
yes. Yes, that's a very good one. You know, because they are all lemon and lime is captured in my book, The Common Medicinal Plants of Nigeria. The lemon, of course, they are all citrus species. They are all the same family. It's just that the concentration of acid, for example, citric acid, which is malic acid, which is available in lime and lemon, is higher in lime than lemon. That is basic difference. And then the rough skin, if you look at the rough skin of the lemon, has more oil, the limonene oil, as compared to the lime. So you tend to be friendly. You know, I would say even plants have characteristics. Lemon is easygoing. So lime is I'm ready and I'm strict. Okay? That is why you see that people tend to love the lemon. And the bark can be crushed. There is a lot of fiber. But they are all the same. If you take a teaspoonful of lemon, take half teaspoonful of lime because of the high acidity. But when you put it in water, the alkalinity is increased.
Let me say, I mean, Juma, I know that this is an issue that is always of interest to us.
Yes, it is.
Is there a growing community of pardon I would like our viewers to pardon this, of enlightened, that's to say, beyond the community level now.
Yes.
Is there a growing community
yes.
of interested persons who are saying, wait a minute, it's not every time I should be popping pills. Yes. Let me look at my kitchen rack. Exactly. Let me look at our herbal availabilities, and I know what to do. I'm not asking you to be a champion of this growing community, but are you getting interests? Are you getting vibrations, positive vibrations from a community of enlightened persons?
A lot. I am glad you are asking this question. Even if I just to put a teaser to the COVID-19, all those people you see, they went back to natural remedies. Yes. You saw people even popping. You had a program, one commissioner was popping. He didn't never end. He was popping the herbal remedies without end because of the interest. And then the interest is one of the reasons why we should now begin to look at standardization and giving the dosage. So, but you see, I have given the dosage the way herbal remedies work, which is different from the way our strictly paracetamol, for example, works. These are synthetic. They follow a process for production. But these are powder that have multi-components, and God is in infinite mercy. Put them together. Some of us, if you study the Chinese medicine, will tell you that I am putting the two. This is the leader, this is the balancer, and this is the enhancer. They will explain it to you when you understand. So that is why you see at times you see multi-component. A lot of people are beginning interested. And more importantly, let me appreciate the Federal Ministry of Health, my minister, the Honorable Minister of Health, the Honorable Minister of State, and my permanent secretary. They have, and the current administration that has led, due to the strong political will, to establish a department, which I'm now the pioneer. A lot is happening. Very soon we are going to launch our well-being center in the Federal Ministry of Health. Well-being center is in a bid to promote preventive health care, where people can come, you can have yoga. We are going to have free people from the Indian Embassy coming to teach. It's open to everybody, because I know that the civil servants cannot afford the other one outside. The money is high for you. But in that center, we are looking at subsidizing, using the opportunity to bring people. For example, the India ambassador has given us free yoga instructor to come and instruct our people. Yoga is a meditation. It is and we also have it. When you go on meditation, it heals your mind, body, and soul. That brings me to aromatherapy, one of the books that I'm yet to launch, I'm working on. Aromatherapy are essential oils. It will be exhibited today. Not only am I exhibiting the books, I have followed it practically. You will come and see the collections that I have, talking and walking the talk. So there is a lot of audience interest, and the Ministry of Health has taken great positive steps. My Minister of State will be there today to do the launching, and to do the chief host, my permanent secretary, and other important well-wishers who will be there to see the wonderful work of nature. Natural medicine is such important. The great Egyptian papyrus, 70 feet, had some inscriptions on them. Ginger, garlic, coriander. Some great Cleopatra, the beautiful woman, who romantically, Julius Caesar, got them romantically involved, was bathing in a combination of henna, goat milk. When she sees on it and steams with it, she comes out. The skin is like a baby. Will you not go for that?
Of course.
Kingsley.
my wife already has that.
So let's now talk about where's the venue?
The venue is the International Conference Center. The launch is 2 p.m. Nigerian time. And there is also online Zoom link for those people who cannot get access, because we must observe strictly the COVID-19 protocols. Okay. So we have inside well managed, but you can join online 2 p.m. today at the International Conference
So what's
Center.
the Zoom link?
The Zoom link, I will send it down because I cannot have it.
I was just wondering, Juma, Hajia Zainab.
Thank you.
As part of this growing community of interests by enlightened persons, what do you think also needs to be done to delink the association of herbal or natural medicine with witchcraft and all kinds of fetish things, because sometimes it's usually that linkage that discourages people from pursuing that. Say you go, they will take one bell, you have beads and all kinds of marks on their eyes and faces and incantations. Those are process of divination. They say that the herbs also speak to them. So some person say, no, I don't want to go that route. I need to follow the ones that are scientific. How do we delink this association?
That is why we look at, you see, when you talk of medicinal plants which are captured, you see it physically. And physically, from the traditional aspect, what they use it for. From the scientific aspect, the research that has been done. And in the practice of traditional medicine, there are different practices. Like you said, spiritualism, occultism, herbal medicine. For us, that aspect which I am passionate about is the products, the medicinal plants, the trees you see, the plants that grow. They are not just there. They are there for a purpose. You are able to find them and see why was Almighty God put these things there before bringing mankind. The Garden of Eden was there. It's a message. You feed the fruits. Garden. Yes, the garden. And I'm encouraging women, especially the kitchen spice rack. You can have a garden, small garden, grow your foods organically, less fertilizer, so that you can now use that to be your life juices. You say, my garden is going to have organic ugu, is going to have organic basil. Those simple things, then you know that they are organically grown, not the fertilized ones. So every woman, every family, God wants us to have a space with a ground where you can put these things and grow them. And I am even talking from the economic benefits, which should be of interest to us. The economic benefits is the green gold, so that we will begin to cultivate. In each of these countries in states, we have 774 local governments in Nigeria. God has given a peculiar plant. Look, the locust bean is very commonly grown in a village called Jogana in Kano State. That is the local dadawa. The dadawa is spice. The pulp, which is yellowish in color, massive antioxidant, massive fiber, a superfood. These are things that we can begin to stimulate and have job creation, wealth creation, value addition, stimulating agriculture, health, economic, beauty, etc.
All right.
That's quite, enlightening. And I'm a traditional medicine kind of person. I really don't like going to the hospital. Naturally, you just know what to mix and take. Zainab Ujudud Sharif, Director and Head of Traditional Complementary and Alternative Medicine, Federal Ministry of Health. As always, it's a pleasure to have you come on the show.
I am always happy to be here.
And I'm sure a lot of you will be getting a lot of calls. A lot of Nigerians will want to know how the book will be launched and how they can get it. Thank you so much for coming. Well, that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. It's been a pleasure having you join us on the show. I am Juma Yusuf. Thanks for watching.
All right, see you tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.